Hi, this is Jürgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. I thought I would do my best to slaughter a sacred cow here today and warn you about the dangers of perspective taking. We have been taught that if we have a conflict with someone or we want to understand someone better, that we should try to be empathetic and use our imagination to imagine what it's like to see the world through the other person's eyes or position, to walk a mile in the other person's shoes, so to speak. And that sounds like a great idea, and sometimes it can work, but there are quite a few studies that show that compared to control groups, people who spend time using their imagination and empathy in an attempt to understand other people, that this actually tends to backfire and make people more prone to misunderstand and read people wrongly, so to speak. So for example, in the field of neurolinguistic programming, there's this process called NLP perceptual positions, where students are advised to first try to see something from their own position, like that's first position. And second position would be to imagine what something looks like from the other person's perspective. That's the second position. And then to attempt to do a third position where you kind of imagine how it might look like from both positions, like first position and second position simultaneously, and then kind of come back to your own first position. Now, allegedly, this is supposed to help you take the other person's perspective and get a richer map. But it's likely to actually make you more deluded. You see, here's the problem. The person who's doing this is using his own imagination, his own stereotypes, his own motives, his own expectations, his own beliefs, and trying to imagine what the other person's position might be like. Now, the problem is, if we fundamentally have misunderstood the other side, which is very often the case when we are in conflict, using our imagination and our empathy in this way will only make us distort things even more. We're projecting even more stuff onto the other person that doesn't fit. We're mind reading more. And then, while thinking that we're being empathetic and gaining clarity, we're actually getting even more distorted, right? And then what happens after we've spent time using our imagination and our empathy to try to understand someone else? We've taken the other person's perspective, and then we begin to talk to the other person based upon our efforts in understanding the other person's perspective, and the other person kind of shoots us down. We can then very easily become irritable and kind of blame the ungrateful person who's not acknowledging how we in fact have done our best to understand the person. So again, if someone operates from a different set of algorithms than you, if someone has a fundamentally different position or operates from different assumptions than you do, then using empathy and using your own imagination to imagine what it's likely to be like, what the other person likely experiences from his perspective, is likely to distort things even more and give you not a more accurate, but a more flawed understanding of the other person's perspective. So What's a better way of doing things? Well, do your best to get perspective instead, meaning don't use your imagination. Don't use your empathy. Don't use the NLP perceptual positions. Ask the person. Actually ask the person what their perspective is, and once they give it to you, do your best to rephrase it back to the person so that the other person can verify or not to what extent you've actually gotten his or her perspective or not. Now, may you still miss? Yes. Do we all lack self-insight? Yes. Do we have limited access to our own motives and mental processes? You bet. We actually can't really introspectively access our own mental processes. So that's all true. But you're less likely to screw things up to the same extent that you do when you use empathy and perspective taking. So ask. Try to get the person's perspective. Say, what is your take on this? Like, how do you think? Or what I just heard is this. Does that map onto what you're actually saying? And then if you really want to make sure that you're onto something, try to state it back to the other person. And then the other person can determine for themselves to what extent you've gotten their position. Now, again, the caveat here is they may not have much access to their own positions either. They may be lying, they may be deluded, they may fundamentally lack self-insight. So and of course, sometimes just knowing something about human beings in general, like how the human animal tends to operate, looking at it from a more impersonal perspective, can sometimes be a more accurate predictor of what's likely going on in someone else than their own representations of what they think is going on inside of them. So that's something as well. There are these traditions in these Native American societies where you have something called the talking stick, right? Where if there's some sort of conflict, the one person gets to state their perspective, and then they give the stick to some elder, and then the other person has to present what they heard until the other person verifies, yes, you got me, like you got my perspective, and back and forth. So I hope this was useful. Again, as always, if my ideas resonate with you, know that I see clients from all over the planet on Skype. I offer mentoring. I do seminars. So if you're curious about that, check that out at provocativehypnosis.com. Till next time, thanks for listening.